right. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Serious Angler podcast. As always, I am your host, Bailey Agbrett, and joined with me are the dudes over here with the captain, Mr. Andy Full, and Mr. Adam Deacon. What's going on, fellas?
Not much, man. Happy to be here with another Monday Night Live, another Elite Series guy coming in. So excited to get to talk to everybody. But man, things are good. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, we're hanging in there. I'm battling possibly losing a voice, so if I sound really quiet, I apologize. I think it's due to being outside in the cold and wind and rain for like 3 of the last 4 days for about 12 hours a day. But that's fishing life. So
guide life.
Yeah, can't complain about that.
He says it like it's a bad thing.
No, I mean it's wonderful. So I mean, I'm 31 years old, living the dream that a lot of people wish they could. So it's only going up from here. It's fun.
Heck yeah. Dude.
I'm sure Josh we've had on the show before. For folks tuning in that haven't seen, obviously we're having Josh Douglas on the show tonight, and we had him on previously, and we talked about him guiding. I think that's literally like when you were getting your start, Andy. So I'm sure you're kind of starting to feel some of the things that Josh was talking about in the previous show.
Mm-hmm.
But Deacon out there in Colorado is starting to look like our new podcast background here.
Dude, yeah, it kind of shut down, but it snowed earlier today, man. It kind of like some big flakes and stuff too. I was impressed. I was like, oh, I guess it is starting to snow. But I leave for Havasu this weekend, so ready to go to the desert and already be back to like not cold weather. So short-lived for me, but I'll be back in it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, dude. Well, boys, I think the first order of business we have to tell the folks is tonight we are giving away a pair of Hobie eyewear sunglasses. And these are the Andy Full specials, as I like to call them, because it's like the only one that Andy wears.
Yeah, they're
he looks like Zach Galifianakis every time he wears them.
So good.
I got them sitting right here. So a lucky winner.
Are they Sightmaster Plus?
We'll be winning some of the in the Sightmaster lenses. So these are the juice lenses.
Those are the
you guys want a pair of these? Basically, just get your comments in, and we're just gonna pick a lucky winner tonight, and be walking away with some Hobie eyewear shades. I'll be shipping them right to your doorstep, and something kind of cool to go right in stride with that. A really cool announcement for the first couple of weeks leading into Thanksgiving is that Hobie Eyewear and the Serious Angler Podcast are running a pretty cool discount special for the next 2 weeks. If you're looking to find a good stocking stuffer, a really cool Christmas present, these shades are already like performance-wise top-notch and for the price, but now you get 35% off.
Yeah,
and you can go for the next 2 weeks from now, like today until November 14th. You can get 35% off any of your Hobie eyewear orders using code SERIOUS35, and we'll leave that down in the description as well. Just head over to the website, and you guys can get your orders in for dirt cheap. And it's a great way to, if you got a family member in fishing, or you got a family member that needs some new shades, and you want a good pair for cheap, head over, use that code, and it's a good steal. So that'll be running until November 14th, and we got some videos coming out that have to do with Hobie eyewear and some stuff for 2022 that's pretty exciting. So either way, I'm pumped to give away some shades tonight. Should we add some rules to this, or we're just going to give away just some random commenter? What are we thinking, boys? Should we
well, we don't want spam comments, so I'm thinking it has to be a good question.
I'm down for a question. I'm not the biggest fan of like trivia questions for stuff.
It makes Deacon think.
Yeah, that's right. It's like it gets to a point where it's just too much, and I just it goes out. So I lose, and I hate losing. So that's probably part of it.
Well, here's what we can do. I think the best question, what we used to always do is when we give stuff away, it would be the best question. So for folks that give the best question, I think we should put some pressure on our guest today, Mr. Josh Douglas. And the folks with the best question for Josh tonight, Josh will hand select the winner. Does that sound good to you, Josh? You're down there in the queue. Give a thumbs up if that sounds good to you. He gives us a nice thumbs up. All right. So pressure's on, guys. Get your questions in because Josh will be picking the winner. And before we get Josh on here, there's two things I want to go over. First one is kind of selfish, but we have a question here asking if I'm putting Mega Live on the kayak. Yes, I definitely plan to. I have 360 on it, and that helped me yesterday smash my personal best with a 7-pound, 2-ounce largemouth up here in New York. So selfishly, just want to throw that out there because I still think I have a heart rate of 180 since
trying to catch smallmouth.
Yeah, smallmouth fishing and largemouth comes up out of nowhere, but I was okay with it. It was great. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. I'll throw some pictures up maybe towards the end of the show. And then the last thing I wanted to throw out there, and we're not going to get into this too much because I don't really like to discuss topics I don't have all the information and all the facts, especially if I'm not, experiencing it. I'm not a college angler, so I'm sure people know where this is going. Is there's a whole, debate of college scheduling and all that jazz. And what I'll leave it at is that the folks over at A1 Angler Development did a really cool podcast and kind of laid it out very neutral, laying out all the facts and stuff that's for the anglers. And that link is down in the description of the show if you guys want to go listen to that and see what's going on over there. But my only point on that is let's just do what's best for the anglers that are coming up because that's the future of fishing. Any other input before we bring on Josh here, guys?
No, I mean, if there's any way to further improve like grooming those kids and getting them better for like after life of college, I mean, it can't be just fishing all the time, in my opinion, because there are other things that these kids have to look forward to. But if you get good coaches and you can groom them up, it's even better for solving life issues. So apologize for my rant.
Yeah.
Deacon, any input?
Dude, I am not 100% aware of the situation. I saw the schedules get released, but I'm not well versed on it at all. But I fished in college all 4 years and really enjoyed it. But no, I think it's a great way to get on some bodies of water. And I'm curious to kind of see exactly where that went. But I'll have to tune into that podcast to figure things out.
Yeah, and maybe it's if people want us to talk about it, we can go into it at the end of the show. But I guess to really lay it out there is I think Bass has an event that's 2 days before the start of the Major League Fishing College Championship. So in reality, you can easily make that. If you're determined enough, you can make both events. You might not have however many days of practice you want, but you can make both. So I can vouch for the argument of, you know what, if you really want to get after it, you're just going to have to, suck it up and you'll make both events because, John Cox couldn't make all the events. He knew what he was getting into. But on the other side, I do see of trying to do what's best for the anglers. But
again, it's think for the college kids because that's a lot of finances they have to work out in a short period of time as well. So
yeah,
I get it.
Here's and this is my last point. I keep saying that's gonna be my only point. But this is my last point, and we'll get Josh on.
My last point, and then 10 more points.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
Is a lot of the college anglers I was seeing in comments, and there's very talented, very smart kids. But a lot of them were, talking about it almost seemed more fishing focused for college. But if you're in college, you need to be focusing on that degree. Yes, I agree that college fishing is a step to the professional levels. But if your only goal in life is to just fish, I guess I can have an argument for trying to take the working route and fish in the opens or something like that along those lines. But that's a whole other topic for a whole other show.
Don't go to college, go to trade school, fish local and regional tournaments instead of blowing $120,000 on a college education. So
I got some arguments here too, but I'm not gonna say them because let's get Josh on.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
100%.
We'll talk about it after the show.
All right.
Without further ado, let's get him on here. Mr. Josh Douglas, what is going on, sir?
What's up, everybody? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, dude, it's good to get you back on the show. It's been a little while.
Yeah, I think a year.
Yeah, is it almost?
I messed up the time zone last time. I won't forget. I don't ever forget.
Because I think you were hunting, right?
Yeah, I was hunting. Yeah, same thing I was going to do earlier, and I was like, man, I can't screw up the time zone. I kept looking at the thing. Yeah, I even double checked with you, Bailey, this morning to just be like Central Time, right? But
yeah, I got that text this morning, and I was like, hey, he's on top of things this time. No, dude, it's good to get you back on. And I think first and foremost is hell of a congrats, man, on qualifying for the Elite Series. I know you've been at it, and it shows that persistence pays off. I think everyone knows that if there's anybody out of the guys that qualified to the Opens, there's no one more deserving of you for the time and effort that you put in. And it's gonna bring into some interesting questions with kind of some of the stuff that was talked on with some of our recent guests that qualified for the Opens, like Jonathan and Alex. And, we'll get into that in a little bit, but I think first things first, dude, is has it sunk in yet? Have you kind of gotten to the point where you're like, you're preparing for the elite season next year? Is it go, go, go? Or are you kind of like taking a few weeks off? What's it been like?
Yeah, it's been it's sunk in now. It didn't really it all happened, and it actually happened. When the puck, once it was all said and done after Lake Norman, and then I literally came home and I had weeks of guide trips already for people out of state. So I kind of went right back into fishing right away, and I mean, it did, yeah. I mean, it definitely sunk in. I kind of thought I was going to, honestly, earlier in the year. I said it to Bree. When some things just weren't going right for me, other things were going too right, and it was like, man, this is something's going on. So I kind of felt like it was going to happen, but it's sunk in, and we're getting kind of an abnormally warm fall. I'm sure y'all are too. We should be about done fishing here by now. It's deer hunting season starts here in like a couple days, but they're talking about mid 50s still. So I've been sneaking around a little bit, doing a little bit of fishing and trying to do some hunting and stuff just to decompress a little bit. It was kind of a super long season because when you fish multiple tours like I have, multiple circuits, and then when you add in that whole COVID delay, kicked everything into the fall last year. It just seems like we just never stopped. Like it was a 2-year run. So trying to take a deep breath and all that real quick, and then we'll be right back at it here before I know it.
Heck yeah, dude. Well,
sure,
here's,
man.
I think, one of the more interesting things to me, and I'm curious to see, what preparations you have lined up going into your first Elite Series season is, I think amongst all the guys that have qualified, I think you're the most prepared from the business side. And I think a lot of people know there's a lot of guys, I shouldn't say a lot, there's a handful of guys in the industry that are really good at the fishing and really good at the business and know how to combine the both of them. And it's easy to say that you're one of them. So I got to say, you have to feel pretty comfortable going into the Elite Series season, being able to focus more primarily on the fishing side than not worry about having to accrue this business side of the game.
Yeah, definitely. I've had that now for a few years. Once Bree, my wife, was able to come and start traveling with me, and we took the show on the road as a team. I've kind of had that where I just can focus on fishing every day, and she can make sure don't get me wrong. She tells me what to do. Obviously, I got to get in front of the camera and do stuff like that. She definitely bosses me around, but at the end of the day, I can kind of leave the business things to her and just make sure I'm doing the things I'm supposed to do and really focus on fishing, man, because some guys are like stupid talented on the water, stupid talented off the water. I'm not one of them. I definitely have to be focused on what I need to do my job. And so she makes that easy. But as far as the sponsorship goes, it's been a 10-year run at the Opens. I'd say half of those years I fished all the circuits. The other half only one if I could just fit in whatever I could, mostly once I was fishing the FLW tour and stuff. And so from a sponsor level, I was pretty sponsored going into, I've been relatively sponsored. So now it's kind of my sponsor's time to shine and take that stage. And it's been pretty turnkey for me as far as, I'm just sitting there trying to catch up now and trying to, watch as many of those Bassmaster lives and all that I can to get re-caught up on some of these fisheries that I just, never been to before. But it's going to be an exciting ride, a good change of pace, and from the sponsor level and on the water level, it's perfect. Timing is perfect.
Yeah, I think I heard a similar quote from Fighter after he won AOI was like, I've always had my sponsors there. I've been putting all the work in. Now it's their time to be like, all right, pay up, boys. I got the attention now. We're at the big leagues. Time for you guys to put in the work.
Yeah, that's right. And Fighter, dude, that you're talking about the ultimate top of the sport right now. He's holding the crown. killer season for him, and dang right, dude, he better be, because if he's not, then who the heck? Then what are the rest of us doing? They better
Right.
be
Sure.
calling him and throwing money at him, because he ain't going away for sure, not at all. But yeah, definitely, you know, I just got, you know, I was in the same boat with my sponsors, whether I just fish the opens next year, if I fish the circuit, or if I fish the elites, you know, just congratulations. You know, they just want me to fish where I want to fish and where I'm most happy, and then you'll get the results that you want to get too, you know.
Absolutely.
Sure. You know, Josh, you made a point there about how you're wanting to go back and study some film and that kind of a thing on some of these lakes that you aren't necessarily used to being on. I mean, I think that a lot of people don't, there's a lot of overlap in tournament fishing on certain bodies of water, right? That are always hit consistently. But of the kind of the new and upcoming schedule, you know, obviously fish the tour a long time and the opens, but what's new to you that the elites seem to be hitting recently, or where did that statement come from?
Yeah, you know, as exciting as the elite schedule is, you have one thing you definitely have. I mean, there's hammers littered of those 92 anglers. There's a lot of them that'll take my lunch money and my entry fees real quick if you're not prepared. So you have that aspect of trying to get prepared, and then they do have a little bit of a reputation for hitting certain lakes multiple times.
Sure.
St. Lawrence, Lake Fork, looking at St. John's. Like I generally do real well in Florida. I can usually count on Florida, if all things go correct, of course, to leave there with points to start the season right away. I've never been to the St. John's. I've actually been like around the boat ramp once for a Shimano shoot for like all of 3 hours and then gone. So I don't have any real knowledge. Harris Chain, you know, I feel pretty good. Harris Chain, I've had opens there. It was a perennial tour stop. I've had top 30s. I've cashed a lot of checks at the Harris Chain. You know, and that's one they haven't really been to. You know, now the Johnston's Clean Clock, Gussie, all of them did well, and a lot of the opens guys that are through there have now been there. But as far as the main elite field, you know, hasn't been there. So you got a little bit of a catch, but I think, you know, it is going to be a little something. I got to definitely go set the camper up and just at least idle around and get familiar with where the boat ramps are of a few places. You take South Carolina. I've never been there before. Lake Fork, I've been there a couple times. I think I hit a couple stumps and said, my God, are those rocks or are those stumps? And basically left after that. So I got a lot of work to do there. But, and even the St. Lawrence, you know, the St. Lawrence is my first time being there this year. I mean, the MLF had us damn near in Montreal. So I was so far away from where all the action will go down once the elites are back there. And I've never been able to even go to the Canadian side of you know, Ontario. Really, it was an afterthought. It was so far away. And then I've never been able to go to the Canadian side. So that's like their playground. I feel like they've been there every year for the last 10 years. So I'm going to but it's my strong suit. It's smallies. So I'm definitely excited for it. So I'm going to have to, you know, put in some time. Oahe, you know, I finally get one that's kind of close to me, and I've never been there a day in my life. Oahe, South Dakota, like, but La Crosse, it should be fun. It should be fun. Chickamauga, I lived there before, so I'm pretty pumped. And Pickwick, I've never been there, but I do like ledge fishing and offshore stuff. So I'm expecting to be pretty good. I'll tell you one thing, guys. You always want to know a fishery. You know, I mean, you do. But preconceived notions have killed me plenty of times in bass fishing. So it's not always a bad thing to show up, especially when you're talking about places like Florida. It seems like that place changes every single year I go there. It looks so different. So definitely optimistic about, and I seem to do well on big fish factories, and the elites definitely go to big fish factories. So that part of it I'm looking forward to too.
I think this is Josh Douglas's Bassmaster fantasy fishing campaign.
Yeah,
it sounds like
I don't know, man. I haven't
Let's
been there a
go.
bunch. I haven't been there a bunch, but definitely, I'd pick me. That's for sure. I'd pick me.
Yeah, there we go.
So
But
it
I've
is
been
a
picking me for
campaign.
10 years.
It is a
dude.
campaign.
You know, yeah, right. I actually kind of forgot about that because we didn't have that fantasy fishing part. So that's part of it. That part of it's kind of cool to have a little something going there. But
Well, yeah, I don't know if you know. So our Bassmaster fantasy fishing series we have Adam Bartuzik, who you well know.
Yep.
And he pretty much picked either Bob Downey, Seth Feider,
Or
Or,
Austin Felix.
or
Every
Austin
tournament.
He's a
Felix.
homer.
He was the
Just about
Felix
damn near every
every
tournament, and
yeah.
he said last show that Josh Douglas will be the new one to that. So
Yeah,
every
that's what
year
we-
he's
yeah.
going to get picked on every fantasy fishing.
He's
Yeah.
a homer, obviously. Yeah, he picks the boys from back home for sure. So yeah, that'll be
he
good.
did well
you know?
with it.
Yeah,
too.
oh, I'm sure. Well, he picked a couple good fishermen, a few good fishermen there. There's Pat Schlapper. I know Jay Pazurak just qualified.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a Wisconsin guy. Seems like a lot of northern boys are starting to kind of get a hold of the game, and it's pretty versatile up here. You guys know that, you know.
Yeah. Jake is pretty cool because his dad is fishes the NWT.
A hammer. Yeah, no, a hammer. Like, he's not just a walleye guy either. Like, he'll beat us up in smallie tournaments too. They can fish, that family, for sure, no doubt about it. But it should be pretty turnkey for Jay too. You know, come in and dad kind of look over him and all that. It's a good time. It's pretty cool. There's a good crop of anglers definitely that qualified aside from me for sure.
Yeah. I want to go back to a quick point. So you mentioned how sometimes preconceived notions can burn you, and that you mentioned you haven't been to the St. Johns River. I think with how much that place has changed in the past couple of years, unless you're a Cliff Prince or a guy like yourself going with a fresh mind, I feel like you guys got the advantage because it's brand new versus guys that have a preconceived notion when it had grass, and now you can go in with a fresh mind and maybe you do better than the guys that have actually been there before.
And you know, aside from just like I said, not just St. John, Florida's just that way. I mean, very few lakes am I willing to just delete my waypoints when I leave, and Florida's one of them. Like, it just, if you see it every day, it doesn't look like it changes. But if you go there January, February, March every year, it changes every year so much. So Florida, just in general, is just one of those places. But yeah, man, it's exciting. You know, I got a lot of work. I'm gonna have to make the most of the opportunity for sure. But it's that part of it. It's not my first rodeo. It is on the elite stage. So you just better bet that I'm gonna do whatever it takes to try to make sure that I take full advantage of the opportunity. That's for sure.
Heck yeah. So we're gonna, in a second here, we're gonna get into the opens, the Southern Opens that you qualified through. We'll kind of like do a little deep dive into to each of the tournaments, but there's a couple questions here that we'll run through from the viewers. And the first one comes from Joe LaBarbara, and he said, "What hook and size did Josh use when he tied his own hair jigs?" He said he saw an old YouTube rerun of you and a short-haired fighter tying them before you were going out to smash.
That one
That's
is old.
hilarious.
That one is low. People like when I bring back those short hair ones like that. That's yeah, he looks like a baby. It's actually those jigs. Those were Outcast tackle. That's the Outcast tackle fighter fly jig. It's a Gamakatsu hook is what we're using on those, and it's just the plain jig head before it's tied is all it is. Did I answer that question right? Yeah, it's just an Outcast tackle jig. I think it's a size 1 or a 1/0 hook, something like that.
Heck yeah. There was I was listening to if you guys haven't heard it yet, the recent Stray Cast episode with his name Connor. Can't remember his full name from
Summers. Yeah, that was a good, interesting deal. Like you were talking earlier, behind the scenes. Yep.
Yeah, Deacon. That's something I think you would eat that up. Stray Cast had a bunch of their different guys from their sponsors on, like Sims, Outcast, all that, and it was a really cool episode to kind of give like a deep dive into some of the industry stuff.
I saw the ad for that one. I need to listen to it.
Heck yeah. Let's see. Here from Logan Sullivan, he asked, "Do you think not being able to fish during the winter puts you at a disadvantage?"
Good question.
I can't. I mean, yeah, as a there's a lot of things being from Minnesota that'll put you to advantage. We don't have a shad, in Minnesota, so that's probably takes more on you than not. But fishing time, I'm probably not the best one to ask, because as soon as Christmas is over and I've spent time with the family and all that, Bree and I and the dog are southbound where there's lily pads and stuff and open water. A guy being just a bass pro can't do too well here with the ice fishing game and all that. And but is it a disadvantage? Maybe, but at the same time, a lot of times we don't go to those fisheries in the late fall, early winter, and the times that we're not fishing. yeah, just not being around fishing. Definitely. I know I get rusty if I go a week or two without fishing. I feel like I've never done it again for a little while until I start getting dialed in. But, I'm not going to say that it's too bad. It's just more so that we're forced. It's frozen, so we can't really do nothing to try to pattern a bass.
Yeah.
At least I don't. I'm not gonna go out there and try to pattern a bass. We'll go that way.
One question, then we're gonna get into the Harris. Is so you touched on St. Lawrence River being something you're confident in with spinning rod and smallmouth, and obviously you are on Mille Lacs where you guide. I don't even know how many days of the year using spinning rods, light line, finesse fishing.
Yeah.
But I also know, when you talked about Florida and we saw you did good on Sam Rayburn, you almost won Sam Rayburn, that you're proficient with a big stick and big baits. Is there one you'd rather have in your hands that you have more confidence in, or do you think you could be proficient in whatever situation you're fishing at?
Yeah, there's no real difference to me between the spinning pole and the bait caster or anything like that. I do like a spinning rod. I mean, here's what I like. I don't honestly like running around with a spinning rod just to catch fish. I like catching 5 and 6 pounders on a spinning rod. That I like to do. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Just big, giant, smallmouth on finesse light tackle is super duper fun. That's just a fun way to catch them. But the bait, most of the trophies that I do have on the wall came off largemouth and bait casters for sure. So, and hey, I like smallie fishing with the bait caster too. Like right now on places like Lake Mille Lacs, so you don't need a spinning rod to put 25 pounds in the box. You just need a bait caster to do it. So you can fish for them with big stuff. And I like to boat flip them. So I can boat flip them with bait casting gear. Yeah.
There we go. All right, so dude, let's dive into the first Southern Open down on the Harris and kind of walk us through maybe what was going through your mind during practice, and then kind of walk us through the tournament from start to finish on, how it went. If there's anything that went bad, anything that went good, kind of give us the whole laydown of it.
Yeah, I've had Harris Chain. Harris Chain was a lake that like I said, I was familiar with. Again, it changes every year. And not only does it change naturally, but they bomb it a lot. So what you had for waypoints might be literally bare bottom a month later when you get back there. So, finding good grass, offshore grass, stuff like that, knowing where they spawn, where the clean water is, all that kind of stuff is hugely important. A lot of times, Harris Chain has a lock, and that's the key, is it's a bunch of little lakes connected via a couple locks. One, I think, takes 2 or 3 boats. The other one takes 8 or 9 only. And if there's one thing I'm super looking forward to the elites, it's only having 90 boats. I haven't fished, besides the Cup, Forest Wood Cup. I've always been fishing 200, close to 170 to 225 boat fields. So that'll be a little bit, that's been a big deal, learn how to manage that many anglers on the water and where you can get to, where you can't get to. So it might open up Harris Chain a little bit, but I like Griffin. I like to run around in those lakes, but I found a little tiny patch of grass in Harris that I was going to, depending on how I drew, I planned on doing all my damage in Griffin, and which is where I generally do well in Griffin. I started on a spot in Harris with a chatterbait, around grass and stuff, what Harris Chain is known for. I caught a decent limit, and then I locked down, and I never called the rest of the day on day one. So then day 2, I said, I'm just going to stay in, Harris. I'm not going to lock. And then I caught him I think my first cast, like a 4.5 pounder. And I caught him pretty good. And so I left a little early. Like I kind of caught him better than everyone the first day, but left quick to try to get to the lock after that first group went through. And I guess they might have caught him in there. Well, there's only really 1 or 2 more guys, but one of them in particular caught him pretty good and made like a top 10. So when I caught that big one on day 2, and then I caught another big one, and he caught one, I definitely just kind of stayed put. Just kind of stayed put there. And honestly, I thought I had enough to get paid. And I just, any other tournament in the world, you'd have been paid on that one. Do you know what I finished or no? Like 40th or 50th, or I know I just missed a check and they paid a 40. So I want to say 49th is what I would guess. It was what I finished. But but it was good enough. It wasn't what I thought, because I was always under the impression, especially this year. This was the first year they only took 3 per division. So I definitely thought a guy was going to have all top 40s for sure to do it, and I figured I'd need 2 top 10s to do it, and then that's what I went on to do. So I just missed the check, but at the same time, I did good enough to keep myself in contention
Right.
after the Harris chain. But the Harris chain, out of the 3 events, is the one I thought I'd do the best at when I first looked at the schedule.
Yeah, 48th.
48th, yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, good turn.
Good, yeah.
I think there's 225 boats. When it came to points, it kind of got me off to where I wanted to be. But I was looking for a lot better event in that one personally, and thought that would be the one I did the best in.
Another Minnesotan shined in that tournament.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Dude, they didn't catch him, dude. He lives northern Minnesota. Yeah, he cracked him. He's gonna be fishing the Classic here pretty soon too.
So, kind of leaving that one, and then you're on your way to. Actually, Douglas wasn't for another 2 months, right?
It was in April, if I remember right. We had a lot of time off between Douglas and Norman. Douglas Lake, I've been there a couple times. I did move once in my life early when I first started fishing the opens. Bree and I moved to Tennessee, and I lived in Chattanooga, and that's where I learned Chickamauga pretty good, just to learn the Tennessee River, because I knew if I was going to make it in the sport, they're always going to go to the Tennessee River. So I had to learn. That's about as far away from Minnesota fishing as you can get. Threadfin shad, gizzard shad, ledges, river systems, stuff like that. So moved down there, and I got to know Douglas a little bit in that amount of time. We've had a couple opens there. I know I've taken, I think, a top 30, something like that, at Douglas before when it was ledge season. I've always struggled there winter, and I've been there more wintry times, or late in the fall when everyone runs up a river or something in jet boats and stuff, or not jet boats, but aluminum boats. I kind of that tournament, I got out there on the weekend before, so Saturday and Sunday I ran around, just threw a little jackal crankbait, stuff like that, and just ran around and threw shaky head and a perfect net head. And dude, I could catch bass everywhere. I mean, everywhere. They're on the banks. They're smallies were free spawning in schools on the bank. Largies were thinking about pulling up. You could just kind of move down by the time. And quickly I realized, though, that I just wasn't catching any weight. You'd have to get lucky and just all of a sudden put a shaky head in the right spot and a 5-pounder and pick it up. But it was if I didn't make that one cast, I had nothing. So the second to be Tuesday morning, I started idling heavy. And I just know, you do it long enough, you just know certain lakes are prone to certain things. Douglas is a lake that they say they live on deep 365 days a year. It fluctuates 40 feet, something like that, roughly annually a year. It's on a schedule. It goes up, and right now it's about at its lowest. Come around Christmas time, it'll be 40 feet away from where you're, 40 feet down, which is just dramatic stuff. So
yeah,
I took that to heart and said, man, I got to figure something out. And I idled, and I found probably 9 schools offshore. And I didn't fish them much. I didn't want no one to see the boat off, because everyone else was really on the bank, man. All the boats were on the bank. And so you didn't want to start looking out. You knew it was kind of getting tough on people. And my last spot, I always tell people to push it in practice, don't take no time off. If they're letting you be out there, you got to be out there. And my one spot in particular, I'd found kind of early on that last day of practice, and then looked at it again late, and it multiplied. They doubled. The fish doubled on it. And of course I wanted boat 8, and I didn't get it. I got boat 102. So I was okay, whatever. I'm just going to go fishing. And I'm just going to stop on the first spot that I can get on and fish it. And I think I caught 16 or 17 pounds in about 10 minutes. And I just happened like all these spots were nothing. And then all of a sudden I went by the one that I thought would be the best, and there was nobody there. And I stayed there. I stayed there for 2 straight days to make it mine, so that nobody, people poke at it every now and then, but not really. They knew it was obvious. I stayed there the whole time. I cracked him big time. My co-angler caught him big time on that first day. And what I kind of figured out was I had a school. I knew the largemouth were on a saddle. I could see them. I idled them. I saw them on structure scan. They multiplied. But how I was fishing that saddle, I was also sitting off of the end of not gravel, a clay point. So I was using like the point would go to this long saddle, and they were sitting on the saddle. Well, I throw up there and started throwing a 6XD and just started jacking them one after another, largemouth. And I was just boat flipping them in my active target. Like I was not targeting none of them with my active target, but you just naturally see you're fighting a fish and you see fish with it coming up. Well, then I started seeing them underneath my trolling motor. So I kind of like backed around and started firing at that clay point, and that was a school of pre-spawn smallmouth. And I had like 2 big largies and 3 big smallies. By the second day, I only caught 1 smallie. The rest were largies. And then that thing died because they're bringing water up every day. By the 3rd day, I couldn't hit it with a crankbait no more. It wouldn't hit bottom no matter what crankbaits I was going to. I couldn't hit bottom without going to like 10XD. And I had to move it so fast. They just didn't want that. So I think I scratched out a limit there. And then I went to a hair jig, an all cast tackle chicken jig. And I just knew I needed a big bite. I'd fallen day 2 to 10th to just squeak in that top 10. And so I ran around and started throwing a hair jig on every one of those 9 offshore spots that I had found before, and had a pretty good day, and finished 3rd in that event. So that got me right back into the point race where I needed to go with 1 to go at Lake Norman.
Yeah, that had to leaving that event, you had to been feeling pretty good.
At Douglas?
Yeah, you're like, all right.
Yeah, except I really wanted to win, dude. Like, because I
feel
just
like
come off
close.
Rayburn. Yeah, just come off Rayburn, where I took a 2nd place. And I'm missing these tournaments by a pound or so, missing these. So I was like, man, it's hard to get there. But yeah, when I looked at the point race and they had me in 6th, I think, or 7th. Yeah, I can't remember nothing no more, dude. But yeah, when they did, then I was like, okay, here we go. I'll have a shot at Lake Norman if I top 10.
Yeah, dude. All right, so I've got a question for you, and so I followed the Rayburn, or I fished the Rayburn event as a co-angler, and followed it, especially that final day, watching you and everything. And then the way that you just explained Douglas, man, it seems like you can turn on a switch to devote yourself to like an offshore bite and find that and spend the time graphing and find those 9 spots. My question is, and something that I personally struggle with when I'm fishing in boater events, is when to fully commit to knowing, okay, look, I am going to spend my 3 days of practice or whatever I have. This is what I'm going to do because this is what I found. I mean, when do you decide that that's going to be your play?
Yeah, I mean, anything you can do that's going to make yourself comfortable and fish in your strengths.
Yeah,
it seems, and it is. I love to make a lake really small for me. I love to know right where I'm going to cast and where I'm going to catch a bass. I don't like going down a bank. Wait, I don't get me wrong, because I do. I love skipping boat docks. I love fishing shallow. I excel at doing it. I like it. But I would I'm fine doing it if I can stay in one area. If I have to start running around and fishing that way, I don't want to do that. I want to get something specific. When you mentioned Rayburn, I wanted to fish grass. That's what we do in Minnesota, is we flip. So when I showed up at Rayburn, I thought if I was going to win that tournament, I was going to have to fish grass. And I did it for like 2 days, and I don't think I ever had more than 13 pounds. And that was early. And again, just you fish them long enough, this place is going to get super tight here once everybody shows up, co-anglers and everybody, and they start boxing. It's going to get tough. And I switched, and I said, man, I got to do something else. And I had that, though. Again, I had a security. I had a way to still be competitive in a tournament, to maybe get a check, maybe even figure out something during the tournament to do good. So that all of a sudden I had a security blanket, same as I did at Douglas. I found them shallow. I figured out what I could do to save face. All of a sudden I just put the rods away. Now, one thing I don't need to do, I have learned to trust my electronics enough. I don't need to fish for them much. Now, that also killed me at Eufaula. This is getting a little off topic because Eufaula was an MLF event. But you follow set up just like Sam Rayburn. Like I was licking my chops. I spent endless days idling and marking brush piles. What I didn't do was fish them enough to figure out how to catch them, or to also know how few bites I was going to get. Like Rayburn, I expected it. Rayburn was tough. So I was like, all right, I get 5 bites. But if you remember the story or you heard the story at all, I idled like 20 something brush piles.
Yeah.
And then went back to the first one in practice and caught a 7-pounder. I don't need to make a cast no more. I can see them from there. And then it's just like it's a numbers game. You know, Mille Lacs, there's a whole bunch of ways to catch a 25-pound bag on Mille Lacs, right? When all hell breaks loose and you can't figure out, you know, you can't get your schoolers to go, you can't get the normal patterns, the mayfly hatch, all that stuff to go, you can always target boulders, you know, in good rock clumps individually. And that's the thing. Now you need to have time on the water. I can put in that time. Your regular weekend fishermen can't because they want to fish. They got to go back to work on Monday. They want to fish. It's harder for them to put in the time collecting waypoints,
right?
Like I can do. And if I run them all, I'm going to get 5 bites, and generally they're going to be big. So Rayburn kind of set up that exact way for me, and Douglas did too. Because again, now I'm taking a big lake. I get heebie-jeebies if I see one dude down the bank here, one dude down the bank here, and I got to come into the middle. And I prefer
don't like it.
to not. I don't like to fish that way. So if I can get away from not doing that, where I'm not fighting like that kind of stuff, and find something that other people aren't looking for, I definitely want to do it. And Douglas shaped up great for that because nobody wanted to fish out deep. I didn't have much competition. There's a couple people that did it, but not very many.
Yeah, no, I like that. I mean, the takeaways from me there is kind of your thought process of I mean, very, very similar, right? Both top 10s, like very close at Rayburn. And like, to me, having that safety blanket then allows you like, okay, I'm going to go see if I can go find something doing what I really, really like to do. So that's, man, thanks for breaking that down. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Are we going into Norman? Because I'll pick up right where I left off with Norman.
Let's do it.
Sure.
Okay. So Norman, I'm going to switch it all up on you. I'm a weird fisherman like that. Preconceived notions. Again, I've had 6. I hate spotted bass. I love them. I love them. Don't get me wrong.
I feel like I've heard you say this like 20 times.
I think I heard
You
this
love
too.
catching them for fun.
Dude, they make me look like the worst fisherman when the puck drops. I mean, I'm not kidding you. Like Smith Lake is everybody's favorite place. I think I was trying my hardest to take last place there in the MLF tournament. Like I just don't get them. But again, I'm a guy that likes to know where and when he's going to get his bites, and spotted bass have a totally different agenda than what other people are doing and stuff like that. So what I didn't want to do was fish for spotted bass. I wanted nothing to do with it. I wanted to throw a buzzbait. It's a dropping reservoir. It's fall time, dog days. I wanted to throw a buzzbait and just leave the elites at that. And if they bid it, they bid it, and have the due diligence to do it. But I was smart, man, and I backed up that by brush piles, and I showed up super early, knowing this was the last one. But I didn't never make a cast. I think a good buddy of mine, who I don't get to see very often at all, Bill Coles, came out like a couple days early in the week, and we just kind of ran around, and we didn't. I think at 7-8 pounds is our best day together, you know, run around for schoolers. And then after that, I never took a rod out, and I idled until Saturday before the tournament, Sunday before the tournament, idled all the way up until Sunday. And then I started fishing shallow every morning. I just couldn't catch them, man. I just couldn't find anything that was making me feel good about it. And so then I turned back to the brush piles. But again, I played it right. I found brush from 5 feet to 40 feet and fished all of it. Yeah, cane piles is how I really thought I was going to top 10 that tournament. That cold front pushed them away from the cane piles for me. And yet didn't activate the shallow bite as good as I think there's, you know, like that true buzzbait shallow bite type stuff. Mm-hmm. And but luckily, you know, I've watched, you know, Brian Thrift and stuff over the years there and his video and stuff. And it seems like brush around docks, shallow brush, stuff like that can get you out of a jam in a quick hurry. And I had enough of it, man. So I just made it work. And again, you need the tournament. That's just something that I've learned, and I'm not afraid You know, Seth, we talked about him earlier. Seth gave me some awesome advice. I was like, dude, what's clicking with you? I mean, he's an awesome fisherman, right? But this year the dude was freaking in Fuego, right? Like, what's different? And he just told me, he's like, dude, I'm not afraid to have a bad practice. It's what happens during the tournament. You know, you can't go in with that mindset of, you know, bad practice just means maybe you don't want to do that in the tournament type stuff. So definitely in that aspect, you know, just not being afraid to go out there and do it, and at the same time letting the practice tell me what's not going to work, and having enough, you know, dot your I's, cross your T's, and then a little bit of luck, man, and just get them in the boat, and that's what happened at Lake Norman.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I remember Seth saying something like, I was on the phone with him writing a piece for Humminbird, and he was saying how in practice he does not want to figure them out completely. He wants a clue, but he wants to figure it out throughout the tournament, because he says, like, if you figure it out in practice, that chances are after day 2, it's just completely done in the tournament, and then you're scrambling.
That has proved to be so many times, you know, like, just you want an area to get better for you as the tournament's coming around, and you just want to do your homework, you know, run around and get to know a body of water, look at it. You know, the old Josh looking back, you know, 9-8 years ago, fishing opens and stuff, man, I'd get a couple bites in a pocket, and then I'd have to see how many bites I can get in that pocket. Well, that's dumb. You know, you're going to go there anyway. It's just like if you caught a 4-pounder 3 days ago, are you really going to go back to that hole and see if you're going to get another bite the day before the tournament? That does no good. You're going to go there even if you didn't. Even if you show up the day before the tournament and you just caught a 4-pounder there 2 days ago, and you show up there again, you make a cast, all you're going to do is either one, hook one that you could have caught, or two, you're going to discourage yourself. Either way, you're still going to fish there when the tournament comes along because you caught a 4-pounder there. So just kind of fishing, you know. I used to fish harder, not smarter. Now I'm hoping I'm kind of balancing the two out between harder and smarter, and just kind of figuring that out. But there's 100% a ton to go with that. It's, you know, you got to rely on your fishing talent when it comes right down to it, because it rarely ever works out the way you envision it happening, for sure.
And ultimately, it's time on the water and learning from your failed experiences as well, as in going back and sticking fish in a pocket the day before a tournament. A lot of people are like, yeah, I just want to go catch some fish, and they screwed themselves. So
yeah, big time. And if they don't, then they're discouraged. Either which way, you may as well just keep looking. And once you kind of, and another thing I learned, that again, some people can do this. I can't. I don't like running a bunch of patterns, trying to do a bunch of different things, because then I'm always 5 casts ahead of the one that I'm making right now. Mm-hmm. And I will not have a good tournament if I'm fishing 5 casts away from the present one that I'm in right now. You got to be real confident about the cast you're making.
Yeah, and I've heard the line before, and I've even said it myself, and I'm glad you say that, because it's a mindset I'm trying to force myself into, because like I was guilty of it this past year. Is like when you have a couple days of practice and you find something really good on day 1, and then you go the day before the tournament, you go there, no hooks or nothing, or whether you do, you have hooks on or not, but you go there to see if you can get bit. It's like, oh, I just want to make sure they're still there, and you don't get bit, and then you're like, your heart sinks for a second, and you start scrambling. That whole night you're thinking of changing your whole game plan, whereas if you never went there, you probably would have had a clear thought. Whether they were there or not on tournament day, you probably would have had a better thought process if they weren't there, and been able to kind of gather yourself better. But that's a really good point you mentioned, though, is like, if you find them one place, either they're going to be there or they're not, but you're just going to waste your time if you go back and catch them or not.
Well, because here's what's going to happen, Bailey. You're not only that, you're going to go there and they're not, but rarely are we ever on them. Like, I mean, I'm not. Maybe other anglers are. I don't generally have the problem where I have so much bass I need to figure out which ones I don't want to fish for. That's generally not the case. But then again, I also practice that way. 8 years ago, I'd take a lake like Table Rock and I'd break down the lake per the day of what, you know, if I had 4 days, I'm fishing here, then I'm fishing here, then I'm fishing here, and then I'm fishing here. And what you end up with is 18 waypoints across the entire lake. Yeah. And now you're scrambling. You can't even fish all that anyway. So I'm a big one in connecting the dots. That's a big thing I say to my Chad Smith, when he's traveling with me and stuff, I would say to him all the time, okay, time to start making these dots make sense and connecting them and then start working. And that, like Norman, I knew a little bit. I knew that 150 bridge or whatever it is right there is a, I don't even know, I might have butchered that, but the bridge right there at Lake Norman is a general popular area, around there. And it kept everything kind of tight so that I had a perfect little, run system through those. So I can optimize my fishing time as well as, try to fish as many of them as I can, obviously.
Right. Andy, Adam, you guys got any questions left on the opens, or should we turn it over to the folks?
Let's turn it over because I see some really good questions coming.
Yeah, me too.
Well,
all right. Let it rip. We got a bunch of them coming in, but one from T. Chang. This is probably one you'll enjoy answering, Josh. He's asking your thoughts on the new Loomis GCX rods.
Yeah, they're awesome. I'm actually switching them out. I like them a lot, actually, but I'm also the guy that is running NRX Plus. So don't, you know what I mean? Like, there's a time and a place for almost every single rod in the G Loomis lineup. So whether or not it's NRX Plus, I don't necessarily want to go crankbait fishing with the NRX Plus rod. You want to find different areas in there, and I have rods in all of them. But that GCX line reminds me very closely of a GLX line. And I think it's a awesome bang for its buck, and I got a ton of them on order. Actually, I'm going to start guiding with Real Heavy just because I do like them. That I like them a lot. They're good rods.
Heck yeah. What is a go-to bait when a lake is highly pressured?
Oh yeah, in a Ned rig, cast tackle, perfect. Josh Douglas's perfect Ned rig. No, I don't know, a drop shot. I mean, it seems like that's all we're doing anymore is fishing highly pressured lakes. Everybody and their mom fishes every time. We got 10 sonars pinging at them. Everyone, the information highway so wide open. It's like people know what I threw at a tournament better than I know what I threw at a tournament. I'm just gonna say it goes a lot with what the forage is on the lake. The water clarity is a big deal. I'm going to tell you, and this is probably not what you want to hear for this answer, but it's less about the bait and more about how quiet you are as an angler and how you can move your bait or your boat around without fish knowing that you're there. And that's critical on the highly pressured lake. So they'll still bite a jig. They'll still bite all that stuff. It looks like what it is. You might need to size down, maybe go more finessey, maybe go 6-pound test. Little tiny swim baits, stuff like that. Whatever you got to do that makes sense to the forage. But the biggest thing I've learned on highly pressured lakes are how quiet you are. And even you take a lake like Kissimmee, I wouldn't consider that like what they're talking about. Like, it is a high pressured lake. It gets pounded, but how loud people will go through them lily pads. Yet almost every fisherman's a hunter. So it doesn't make sense to me when I see it, because it's like you would not tramps through the woods like you're coming through these lily pad fields right now. But for some reason, some anglers can't put a bass and a deer together as an animal that's trying to stay alive and trying to eat food. You know what I mean? Like, they're smart. They know you're coming. I can tell you just by my transducer noise now that there's things that I have to try to do, or shut transducers off, or all that kind of stuff to try to minimize whatever. So the bait relative to the fishery, I would tell you, if it's highly pressured and the bite's tough, then you should probably go with what your confidence baits are. And at the same time, you just need to be really, really quiet. Boat control is definitely the biggest deal to those pressured fish.
I think on that topic, it's actually kind of surprising how many guys, that I've been in the boat with, that will literally just, when they know they're going to go to a specific waypoint, right? There's a rock pot right here. They literally wind up and they put down right on top of it. And then they wonder why they won't eat. And and one thing that's kind of cool with being in the kayak is you're you're a lot more elusive and quiet. And obviously it takes you 2 miles per hour to work up to a spot. So chances are you're working the fishing up to a spot. And you've learned the advantages of, if you're going to fish specifically, because Josh, I am very like-minded like you, in the fact that I have to be fishing a target or I lose my mind. Ask Andrew, if I'm just fishing a random grass flat, my brain just doesn't function. So like, I've had a lot of opportunity to fish up to areas, and it's such an advantage to work your way up, to take your time, be quiet. And you mentioned with transducers, like anytime I'm 5 foot or shallower, unless I'm going through a new area, maybe I'll have 360 on or side just to make sure I'm not missing anything. I usually turn it off if I know the area. Just for the chance of just trying to be as quiet as possible.
Big time. If you take Rayburn, if you take Norman, so many of those lakes, man, even Douglas, I was killing the engine. My thing on a brush pile is I'll usually I touch the icon when I get within a quarter mile of the icon, that one I'm getting to. Generally, I'm never wide open in a tournament anyway, unless it's like takeoff, and even then I'm still like, you end up with your drop shot and your jerk bait and everything's messed up anyway. So it's just like efficiency, one way to get there. But a lot of times, man, my trolling motor stayed down. And I was just, you just idle to the next, right up to the next one and just jump right back up and go. But yeah, blowing in on a spot, that's not good. You want to sit down, you want to idle in on it real quiet. And man, when I'm actually fishing, if it's not a transducer that I need right here, right now in front of me, it ain't on. Stuff like that, and quieting your trolling motor. I'm a big, WD-40 to keep that thing from creaking back and forth. And anything you can do, just anything you can do to get those fish to just to not know you're there 100%, dude. You just can't take that stuff for granted at all.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to me too, with that stuff, like, I think it's awesome to bring up because it's very much so overlooked. And I think the reason people have an issue, Bailey, with that, like with what you're talking about, and the same goes for like the scent theory, right? Of like guys are like, oh, well, scent. Well, to me, like, you can still catch a ton of fish without scent. You can still catch fish when you're being noisy. The trick is we're tournament anglers. Okay. We're wanting to put the most odds in our favor. And instead 100%. Of getting 4 out of 5 bites, if you get 5 out of 5 bites, that's a +1 for you, whether that's being more quiet or scent or whatever it is. And it's just little compounding odds that get better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got a buddy that smokes cigarettes in the deer stand like it's nothing. He shot a 12-point buck within like minutes of you know what I mean? It's like, things happen. Sometimes you get one, but if that's your rule of thumb, I think you're going to end up on the. But it's just mastering your craft. It's just mastering your craft. A fox gets up every single day and it's got to go hunt squirrels and rabbits and stuff like that, and it gets better and better at doing it every single day that it does it. It fails a bunch, but it gets better and better and better. And we're just animals that are hunting another animal. It's amazing because hunters get it. They spray themselves down so they don't stink. They hang their stuff up outside for days, weeks before it comes up. They get in Gore-Tex that's, brushed Gore-Tex that's super quiet. Don't make a move. Sit in the deer stand all day. But then some guy, they get into the fishing aspect and that just kind of goes right out the window. But again, another easier thing for me to say, I spend, 6-7 days a week fishing. It becomes an extension of your leg, the rod, and again, another one too, pitching and flipping. That bait should go in there silently. Because I guarantee you, if all of a sudden you can talk me into eating a steak, but if you throw it at me, it's going to startle me, right? You're going to be like, what are we doing? Well, same thing. Just getting that thing in there, being super duper quiet, natural presentations, not disturbing what's going on. If you don't talk on your cell phone in your deer stand. Think about that with your trolling motor noise and all that kind of stuff. But that's far more important than the bait. That's for sure.
Yeah. Now, Andy, I know you haven't really hunted in your time, but I know, Adam and Josh, obviously, the three of us are hunters. So, Andy, I'm actually really curious to hear your take from an outsider's perspective. But some of the best anglers I know are really good deer hunters. Do you think there's any correlation between the two?
There is, but understand that there's still, I know a lot, and I was even one for a long time, that fished way more than I hunted. Even to the point where I didn't, hunt at all. I fished during that time. And they're probably still very good hunters. They just don't do it. They fish a bunch. It's the exact same thing. Especially now with active target, man. We're hunting more than we're fishing. Sometimes it seems like you're hunting them down, picking out the biggest one out of the school, targeting that solo fish, stuff like that, and just using what's around you. So, they go, I think they go pretty hand in hand. Why we see deer hunters, duck hunters, big game, definitely you got to want to be outside to start for sure.
Right.
Sure.
Adam, any take on that?
No, yeah, man, I think it's dead on. I think there's so many connections. I think that's a really good point to bring up. Yeah, no, there's just a lot of really good outdoorsmen out there that are some of the best hunters I know are dang good fishermen and vice versa. So it's kind of cool how it all works.
Right. Warren Beard is asking, now you qualified for the elites, are you planning on doing any opens next year?
I'm actually not for next year, just because I have a free year on the elites to not. I have paid my dues on the opens. I've fished them for a lot of years. I love the opens. I was talking to Chris earlier. It became very real today when I paid my first payment, by the way. So that then everything comes really real quick. But just still, like 10 years, like the opens. I look at the fisheries. I love them. It's an interesting one. But for this year, we got 9 events. I got a lot at stake. I think this will be the first, my only opportunity at a rookie of the year, stuff like that there. So talking to Bree and all that, I think we decided this year we're just going to concentrate solely on the elites. I do have a new fishing series coming out with Shields. We want to work on that a lot, kind of bringing some mixing on the water fishing show meets like a seminar style and merging that together. So very instructional stuff. So it kind of opened us up to do that and to use some of that travel time instead of getting ready for the opens. But I promise you the next year after that, I'll be right back fishing the opens. I like them. It's a great way to stay on the elites. A great way to win and get into the classic early and not have to worry about it the rest of the year on the elites. And at the same time, man, I just got so many friends and stuff. Fishing those opens are a good time.
Thank you. So here's a really good question. From Chris Desmore. He says, so I'm older than all of you, but remember it was all Southern fishermen until the first 1,000 Islands tournament and a young Kevin Van Dam. So what's the biggest change and influence that has shown that Northern fishermen can compete? And on top of that, now we have a Northern AOI on a very short list of Northern AOIs for the elites.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think a lot's changed. I think bass fishing in general, when I think, he's going back to tournaments I don't know a lot of. I mean, he's going back to when I believe the St. Lawrence is more of a largemouth fishery than it was even a smallmouth fishery. But I think you had just a lot of. I think it was more accessible in the South, and here's why. I don't ever get a fishery inside of 10 hours. I mean, La Crosse is 5-6 hours from my house. I know they've been to Mille Lacs, but that was an AOI. Hopefully one day Bassmaster comes back to Mille Lacs and I should be in my backyard. But it just seems like, 90% of our tournaments are in the Southeast or South, from Texas over to Florida and, up to Virginia and stuff like that. And that's just dominant bass stuff. Now up here we have muskies, we have walleyes. I grew up, toothy critters were kind of the deal up here, but there has definitely been a change in the guard a little bit up north with just way more bass. I remember, man, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a bass pro my entire life. I thought I'd be a hockey pro. I thought maybe for a second golf. None of those two worked out. I guess fishing so far is going. But man, I can remember like freaking out like in high school and see a bass boat go by. Like, oh my God, that's like a real deal Ranger right there, like a glass bass boat, go by. You just didn't. It was Lunds all the time and stuff like that, Alumacraft. So, but now there's bass boats everywhere. And again, I know that literally everyone I talk to on a daily basis is a bass fisherman. So your world gets a little bit smaller to it, but we're versatile up north. We have a lot of different ways to catch bass, from throwing football jigs on rock piles, flipping milfoil, smallmouth, largemouth, deep, shallow. We, the only real one is shad, and even you guys got shad and stuff where you're at. So, that's kind of really the only thing. But yeah, and then also he's talking pre-internet, and now we're also, not pre-internet, but like pre-social media. And now all bass fishermen, for the most part, if you're, good at doing your job on a business level, you're utilizing that kind of stuff. And I think now word's out. I can remember 8 years ago sitting down with some buddies who fished Bass Federation stuff, telling them, man, I want to make the Elite Series, and then being like, had no clue how you even go about doing that,
Yeah.
you know. And now it's that's kind of a common thing. So I think just communication levels through social media and all that has definitely kind of put a light on it. And then and then you got guys like Fighter, you know, kicking butt. Andy Young was with today. He made a classic. You know, there's been a lot of northern guys from this region that have been doing really good, and that makes that next generation crop coming up say, hey, you know, it becomes a realistic thing. You know, it's realistic now. It's not just, you know, a southern bass fishing sport now, and they're coming up north more. You know, they're definitely coming up north more. So,
heck yeah. Yeah, I was pretty excited to see the river on the schedule for the last tournament this year.
Yeah,
pretty excited.
Definitely.
So here's another question that's right up your alley from Logan Sullivan, and he says, "Can you tell how big a bass is just by looking at your electronics? If so, what do you normally run on your screen to tell?"
Well, looking at that on side imaging, no. On down imaging, maybe. Depends on how hard the fish is moving in 2D. It's honestly, I don't feel like bass ever get under my boat anymore. They like avoid going underneath my boat. Like it wasn't that long ago that that's all I did is just keep a drop shot in my hand and wait until a smallie went underneath my trolling motor and drop down and I'd catch them. Now it seems like looking at them, they're learning to avoid boats. They're, you know, stuff like that. So forward facing sonar, I definitely can. That's a big one. You know, down scan. A lot of that just depends on where they came in. So when you're talking about the vertical stuff, when you're talking about regular sonar, structure scan, and even side scan. Well, let's take the vertical one. You can't tell because it could be different. You could have a freaking giant, a 10-pounder, be on the outside of your cone, and he's not going to look all that big because he's not centered into your cone. And if he's moving, and if I'm moving, if we're both on dead calm water and we're not moving, he's going to look a lot bigger. On active target or forward-facing sonar, yes, I've learned, you know, you can tell a fish. First of all, you can tell the fish's mannerisms to identify what species you're looking at. So that's a big one. Walleyes are the different things than smallmouth, and they act differently. And the more you can't teach that. You can just go do that. That's time behind understanding. You know, I look at a lot of fish visually with my eyes, shallow. So they look the same. Doesn't matter how deep they are on sonar. They look the same. So you can definitely, but the biggest thing is just getting in areas that you're very familiar with, that you know has both pounders, 3-pounders, 5-pounders, and then start to look around in there, and you can definitely tell who runs the show in those schools a lot of the times, for sure. Definitely.
That's a really good question. Something kind of cool I learned a couple weeks ago. I was in Minnesota and I got some time with Mega Live, and one thing I didn't even realize is that a fish might look small at first on your forward, but depending on which way that fish is angled, if it's angled straight towards you, it may look smaller until it turns to the side, and obviously that bigger return. So you might think, oh, it's not a very big fish, and then all of a sudden the image return gets bigger. It's probably that fish is turning. That was something cool that I learned that I had no idea or didn't even really think of or put together for forward facing.
Definitely, and how they swim is big. If anyone's ever used an AquaView camera just to learn, they're awesome for learning what you're looking at under the water. You know, they're good. Smallmouths, they're incredible because smallmouths are very, very attracted to a camera in the first place. You bang that thing around, you're gonna have 4 of them, you know, sitting there looking at you right away. But you know, when I was first trying to learn a camera, I was looking at everything. Oh, there's a smallmouth. Oh, there's a largemouth. There's one, and you couldn't tell how big they were. You know, you can't tell. But small fish, you need more energy to move. Big ones glide, you know, and it's the way they move and their confidence that they move in the water. And that's the kind of stuff that you're still picking up on active target, because I'm seeing them in live or Mega Live, whatever, forward facing sonar. You're picking up the fact that, you know, that fish's mannerisms are different than the rest of them. That's a big one, you know, like that's an extra big one. And again, you don't always get that, but you get plenty of times too, especially if they're relating to things where they want to hang around that, and you can kind of get to know them, like I said earlier, and even pick out, you know, make sure my bait is going to the big one and pulling it away from little ones and stuff like that. That's definitely a new reality for sure.
So what you're saying is when the smallmouth fishing gets tough, we should put a camera with a treble hook down there.
Yeah, that would. Well, you drop it down to like avoid it, and you're like, oh man, where'd they go? Every northern bass fisherman says this. Must have been walleyes, right? That's what we say every time we don't catch a big bat. Must have been walleye. And you're like, but if you pick it up and you drop that Aquaview camera and let it hit the rocks, and then just swing it around, like use the cable, swing it, and they'll just be sitting right behind it. It's like they don't like the light on the front, and they'll just sit there and they're just so curious. I mean, you guys have seen the show, like when people scuba dive and feed them and stuff.
Yeah.
They're just a cool animal. So that's they're definitely attracted to that. And generally with smallie factories, you're dealing with clear water, so it makes that camera kind of really shine.
Yeah.
Yeah, if any of you guys don't follow Rob Matsura on social media, he's got some wicked cool stuff of diving with smallies. It's awesome. So
Rob's a badass. First of all, Rob's a badass, and he does. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I love that kind of stuff. I actually would like to get into getting down there and swimming with him and getting into just seeing them in that element. But again, I feel like a forward sonar, I'm learning, and that's a big deal about all the forward sonars is what I thought the bass were doing all this time and what they're actually doing in a lot of cases are two totally different things. Like what my perception was looking at everything in small shavings, small clips, like a fish goes under my boat or my side imaging look at that I'm looking at, but then to open it up and start looking at stuff like I'm sitting under the water looking with my eyes, and you just learn so much more so quick. And if you're on the water a lot, all of a sudden, I think A and B start to make C pretty quick. You're like, oh, okay, like that kind of makes sense. So a lot more to learn on that front, but definitely it's pretty cool.
Heck yeah. Punch Fishing says, congrats, Josh. But we have a couple questions here that we'll wrap up with. Some fun questions to wrap up the episode, and we'll let you go. But before we get into those, we're putting you on the spot and asking which question was your favorite tonight?
Now you put me on the spot. Can we I kind of see all the questions again?
So we had, out of all the questions, we had the one we just talked about with the 2D and using your electronics to see how big a fish is.
That's a good one.
We have Chris's question talking about northern anglers becoming more prevalent. Let's see what another really good one we had as well. And then we had Joe giving a throwback of the old fighter fly back in the day when we couldn't even recognize Seth's face anymore.
Yeah.
We had a really good array of questions here tonight.
We did.
Huge shout out to the guys for stepping
to go to bait on highly pressured lakes. That's always a good one. I'd have to say I think it's the very last one that if I was to pick one, it's going to be that's actually kind of a unique question that people don't ask me, and I get a lot of electronics questions, but people don't generally ask me if I can tell the difference in the size of the fish. And that goes along with a lot of that, size of the fish, and then just how many are there, what species are there, and all that. You definitely can, and I think a lot of people need to. Like I've said it before in some of my posts. There's a lot of anglers that aren't short on cash on buying electronics to put on their boat, but there are a lot of them that are short on time using them. And if you can use them, you're going to learn a whole heck of a lot and actually get more out of them. So I think that question was that. Logan was on the right train of asking the right questions for sure.
Heck yeah. Well, Logan, get in touch with us either on social media or email, whichever, and we'll get your address and send out a pair of some Hobie eyewear El Matadors sent your way. So congrats and keep the good questions coming. Logan's been on a bunch of shows asking. That's not his first rodeo of asking some dang good questions. So.
Well, then he deserved to win, and he deserved to win anyway.
I think this is his first time winning too, though, right?
Yeah.
I think.
Good.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Heck yeah. Well, Josh, we have a couple fun questions to wrap up with, and we'll let you go. We appreciate you taking an hour out of your night to sit and talk to a bunch of bums like us. But
thanks for having me on, guys. For real.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming again.
Absolutely, man.
As for next year, do you have any travel partners set up yet? And are you gonna camper it out? Are you gonna hotel it, Airbnb?
No, I'm campering it out for sure. The camper saved my fishing career back when it did. Like I've said this on podcast, I had bed bugs twice in my life from trying to cheap hotels. The only time I ever almost quit was because I just wasn't around Bree and my dogs enough. You know, I was just gone for such extended periods of time. So my travel partner, again, not a lot changes for me. You know, Bree and Lutzen, my blue heeler, they'll be with.
Gotcha.
They're looking forward to the adventure and the ride. And again, a lot of guys, you know, in campers. And I got a lot of friends that are fishing, and Seth, Austin, and just a bunch of people. Pat. But then again, Carl Jacobson and all them in their camper and stuff. I know Bree's already been figuring out where the campsites is everybody's staying at. So anytime you're rocking a camper, and our Lance has been a lifesaver for that. It brings home on the road. It makes it far more affordable to do this life. I don't have a checkbook, dude. Like I just don't come from money. And we had to figure out, we got married and figured out how to make a dream a reality. And one way to do it is be able to cook for yourself at home. You're in tune with the fishery. You're right there at the camper, right at the campsite at the state park and stuff like that. So I'll definitely, we'll be camping and fishing across the country for sure with my team, no doubt about it. But yeah, and like I said, and then David Williams. I mean, me and him on the. I haven't heard officially from him that he's going to go to the elites. I'm assuming that he will. The dude seems to be able to make it whenever he wants to make it and fish there for sure. He's just a hammer, but he's been like it seems like he's been our neighbor at every campsite for the MLF circuit stuff. So we should have some new faces and some familiar ones, but definitely we will be camping on the road for sure.
The camper movement is becoming a more and more popular movement, especially amongst.
Dude, I don't want to say it sucks, but it's like back in the day, used to my first two, so I have 5 years on the tour. My first year on the tour, halfway through or a couple terms in, Bree left her job and came with me full time. We ran out and we bought a camper. We actually got one VRBO, and our dogs got fleas or something from a house cat that they left there.
Man.
Like we didn't know it was there or nothing.
Forget about that. I'm out of there.
Yeah, it was the whole thing. So yeah, definitely.
Heck yeah. Well, so I know next question is I know we have a lot of hockey fans on here, and it's perfectly fitting because you're a hockey guy yourself.
Yeah.
So this question kind of is molded to them. So for folks who don't know a lot of hockey history, I apologize. But if there was one playoff hockey game that you could go back in time and be at to watch, what game would it be?
Well, honestly, I'm not going to know which game anymore because it's going to go way back. And the reason why is I was a North Stars fan when I was a kid. Like,
oh man,
like squirts, mites, like that kind of level. I was a North Stars fan, and then they just up and left to Texas, which for a dude from Minnesota bringing a hockey team to Texas, I only needed to be 5, 6 years old to understand that didn't make a heck of a lot of sense to me that they're sending them to Texas. When I did in that game, well, then they did it halfway through the season, so all of a sudden tickets were real cheap. So my stepdad bought tickets, and we went to a game, even though we knew the North Stars were gone that year, that they were gone. And they played the Detroit Red Wings. And that was going back to like Sergei Fedorov was like a rookie.
Oh man,
that's how long ago that was. And I was just a kid, and they smoked the North Stars, and there no Minnesota fans were really going because the team was getting shipped off. So Detroit's not far. A bunch of Red Wing fans showed up, and they all threw octopuses out on the ice. And for like a kid, I thought that was the coolest thing in the world that we throw octopuses on the ice. So I instantly became a Red Wings fan. Then the Red Wings went on to like destroy everybody for years. They were phenomenal. But there were some games like the old where I mean it's going back probably, I don't know, 10, 15 years where I was a giant Red Wings fan for the most of my childhood growing up. And there's definitely some games back then that I would have done about anything to go back and watch. But now we got Kirill Kaprizov with the Wild. The Wild are pretty good. Fiala. I'm guessing that my best games are still going to be coming, but it took me a long time to get on the Wild train. Honestly, it broke my heart when the North Stars left. It took a long time to let the Red Wings go as my favorite team. So probably been 4 or 5 years that I've been a Wild fan again. So now I'm pretty much head over heels for them. So hopefully they don't do me like the Vikings do me every other week.
Heck yeah, dude. Andy, you got a question for him?
Yeah, so I want to know who's going to be on the air horn at the Mississippi River, like when you guys were chasing Fighter around a couple of years ago when he finished second for the first time. So is everyone going to have a posse with air horns chasing all the Minnesota guys around the Mississippi River?
I doubt it. I don't know, man. Fighter was kind of breaking molds when he did all that, and he's definitely a fan favorite for sure. I don't know. I don't even like chasing anyone around the Mississippi River because it's a scary place to just run around when you don't know what you're doing and stuff like that. But man, that was, that was definitely a highlight of his career, even a highlight of mine watching him do it. And, essentially him and I started the opens at the same time, fished that Louisville tournament for the, that was both our first open. And to watch him go. I mean, he was always the one around here, but to watch him take off and do that, dude, is so well deserving. But it also paved the way for the rest of us to say, hey, wow, not only is it possible to get to the elites and to win, but he's the angler of the year. You know what I mean? Like they don't get no bigger than that.
It's safe to say he's like a trailblazer, right?
Yeah, for sure. He'd probably even let us call him that too, trailblazer. That sounds very him for sure. But no, it definitely was. And then again, we're going back to the Minnesota and the up north talk where that was so new for Minnesota.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's so new for them. So and to get bass tournaments to even come within anywhere near our state was kind of unheard of.
I'm just picturing Keith Tuma and his tricked out Skeeter with an air horn running down the river.
Oh yeah, well Keith, I wouldn't put it past him to be still doing it for sure. But
like that, I don't know why, but that show on ESPN like resonates with me all the time when I flip over and I'll like tune on YouTube. I'm just like, there's the air horns again. I love it. It's so awesome.
It was awesome. The mullets, the air horn, all that. Yeah.
That's good.
Great.
Adam, you got the last question?
Hilarious. All right. So if your career was a story, right? And you had to choose someone to narrate your story and your career, a celebrity, anyone, who would be the narrator for Josh Douglas and his story career?
Well, first of all, I hate these kind of questions, and only because I think I only think about bass fishing all the time, so I don't even think about stuff. But my easy answer would be, and no disrespect to him, because he definitely has his own story that somebody should be writing. But if I could have Carl Jacobson narrate with his Australian accent, I think that would be pretty awesome, dude. I think that would be pretty awesome because I'm basically make it like a life mission to try to learn all his words and the way he says stuff and all that. Like he probably rolls his eyes every time I call him, but it's hey mate, from the very get go.
Did you say that again?
He's probably like whatever, dude. Like always, but. Yeah, if I could have Carl narrating my story and his accent. If you've ever sitting around Carl for a story, he's the best storyteller that there is. So I'd have to say Carl Jacobson for sure.
That's awesome.
That was actually an easy one. Now I'm kind of in on it, and I might try to see if I can't hire him to do it just for the story.
Yeah, Josh Douglas fishing on YouTube, narrated by Carl Jacobson. That's awesome.
I'm telling you, he's the best storyteller that there is for sure.
We'll have to get it on
animated.
Put that to the test.
Oh, you should for sure, definitely.
Heck yeah. Well, Josh, dude, seriously, really appreciate you taking time out tonight to get on the show and not only answer a bunch of our questions and tell us about your open season, but answering a bunch of the viewers' questions. I know they appreciate it. We really appreciate you coming on, dude. And again, huge congrats on making the elites. We're super excited to watch you and pick you in fantasy fishing this year.
Yeah, do it. Hopefully I'll make you guys proud. And if anybody, Josh Douglas Fishing is my handle on everything, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. If there's any questions that we didn't get to or anyone's got any future questions, just by all means, send them my way. And guys, seriously, thanks for having me on. I mean, it ain't my first time. Hopefully it won't be my last. It seems like I'm doing something special whenever I'm on. So hopefully I'll be back on again here in due time.
Heck yeah,
anytime you want, Josh. So
Right on.
anytime.
Absolutely,
Absolutely,
man.
You always got a seat
Awesome.
over here. And yeah, for the folks, like you mentioned, his socials are right down the show links. So you guys can go right down there, click on them, take you right to them. But Josh, dude, we're going to let you go here. Seriously, appreciate your time. And it will not be the last time you're on this show.
Awesome.
And good luck in the deer stand this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it. I hope I didn't use up all my luck. I still got a little bit left this year to get me a big one for sure. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Have a good one.
Yeah.
Have a good
See you,
one.
Josh.
Oh, just get Deacon out of there, right? See ya.
Yeah, see you later, Deacon. Sorry, bud. No, it's always good to get guys. I really enjoyed, and I didn't really even realize this until I texted Josh last week to see if he was free tonight. We've been on this like trend the past few weeks of like getting all the new guys from going from the opens and into the elites, and I'm kind of into it now. It's like becoming a series, right? Of these opens guys who
Dude, for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot of
Awesome.
it's cool to see because you look at the past couple of weeks with like Alex Redwine and Jonathan Kelly and Jacob Fouts and Jacob obviously is someone we've known about for a while, but like you take like a Jonathan Kelly or Alex Redwine and compare him to a Josh Douglas. I mean, talk about two guys that are on a completely different spectrum when it comes to trying to get into the league
Completely.
and from a different level of preparation. And it's not at a fault for Alex or Jonathan, right?
No.
Josh has been around for a while, and it's something that I think a lot of people are really happy to see him qualify for the late series. But like he said, I mean, he's not.
Dude,
He
huge.
can focus on fishing for going in. He doesn't have to worry about the business end. It's time for the business end to show up for him, and that's huge.
Yeah, man. I think the coolest part of professional bass fishing, or one of the coolest parts, is the fact that you have all these different routes of guys and how they get there. And it's awesome to see Josh get there. I've been a huge Josh Douglas fan for a long time, and I've always been like, he's been so close so many times in making that elite series. And then you have the guys in their 20s, and there's no right or wrong route. It's just a matter of the guys surviving and figuring it out. And there's advantages to both of those situations. So it'll be cool to see how the elite series shakes out for 2022.
And the greatest part about it too is you can say when it's their time, it's their time. So if it's your first year or the 10th year, there's all kinds of lessons you learn. And some people get in after 1 year and fail after 2, and some people who make it after 10 years have a long-lived career in the elite. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, it's completely different than like a football or a basketball tryout. Like it's where talent and work ethic will obviously shine in that. Much more than a 200 boat field of guys with 10 different variables going on, dealing with weather, anglers, and another animal that you're trying to catch. It's completely different. You have a guy who's been, who's deserved to make it for 10 years, but it took him 10 years to make it. And you have a guy that deserved it, but it only took him one, just like you said, Andy. That's what's really cool about fishing. But,
yep.
Congrats again to Logan for winning the Hobies.
Yeah.
I just got your message on Instagram, and we'll get these sent out to you. So we talked about it a little bit in the introduction, but do we want to dive into it now, or should we take this? And the viewers, feel free to comment if you guys like to see a whole episode dedicated to this of the scheduling with college bass fishing, because I think we all have a few different viewpoints on this thing. And it's not to give people kind of a lay of the land, like. I guess so. There's MLF Championship is on one day, and Bass has a regular season event ending 2 days prior to the start of the MLF Championship. So there's a 2-day gap between events, and I guess college anglers feel that they should space them out, coordinate with them to best fit their schedules, which I understand, and I think the trails should coordinate, one, out of just benefit of each other, because competing, I think, in terms of a schedule doesn't make sense for anybody, because one person's hurting in the long run. And I feel like as an organization, you want as much participation as you can. I just think if at the end of the day, like I said in the introduction, it comes down to the anglers, and it should be more about the importance of the anglers. It's better for them because they are the future. If you lose the interest of the anglers, I mean, you're losing people who fish. You're losing people who are going to fish your trail in the future. And there's, I don't know. That's my main point from that, but also in the fact that, like we talked about, if you're fishing to go professional, putting yourself at least $80,000 in debt is not the way to do it. And that's just a personal opinion.
Agreed. And that's where I disagree, because there's some programs right now that you're seeing kids not put themselves in debt whatsoever, and they are having a free by working hard in high school, but a free legitimate shot at fishing full-time in college. And I mean everything, right? Like there's a couple, I'm not saying the vast majority of situations college fishing are not this way, but there are certain couple schools out there where there is not a dime coming out of your pocket. If you are one of the top guys at that school, you have a boat that you're using, you have an allowance for tackle for each event, you have all your travel paid for, all your food paid for, and you can go fish 9 to 12 major tournaments a year in college fishing across the country and all these other lakes. That's a lot cheaper route than a guy going and dropping 80 grand in 3 years or 4 years to fish the Toyotas or the Opens and make it to that next level. So I think that I don't think there's a wrong or a right route when it comes to college fishing, but I think it's just a matter of figuring out who kind of you are and if you want to have that backup plan with a college degree and that kind of a thing too. But that was kind of my viewpoint on that. As far as the scheduling goes, man, I mean, it's kind of an age-old debate, right? I think it's a little bit more pertinent to these college kids right now, and I understand it from that perspective. But man, it's already a problem, and with all the series, you kind of got to at some point pick and choose where you're kind of going to go and spend your time, which sucks. But I agree. I fished both the FLW stuff at the time and the BASS in college. It was just a matter of what I could fish or that was close enough for that kind of a thing. And you want to fish as much of it as you can. And those guys that are really good in college, you see that they fish really well on the FLW side and the Bass side. So I understand wanting to have everything together, but both these organizations have a staff that do multiple things. I mean, Bass's college guys also deal with high school and Bass Nation. And so there's so much that an organization can do by having all these different levels that it makes it hard, I think, on both sides to have to look out for each other per se. And I don't necessarily know how much of a job it is for theirs. And I think it's just something that happens, unfortunately, with our sport.
Yeah. Well, I'll backtrack quick here because I'm asking this out of me not even knowing. So this is more of you educating me question. For anglers, and I knew there were scholarships for fishing, but I had no idea that many factors were involved in terms of colleges giving certain anglers like a stipend for baits and all that jazz. But out of what percentage of anglers do you think are actually being granted that?
1%.
Very small. I mean, it's not even, I mean, yeah, like you got to view it like this. Like, okay, so I went to Colorado State University and we had to do all our own fundraising. There was no help. And that is, in my opinion, the majority of schools. Now, like Bethel, Adrian, Dallas Baptist University, like I know, well, and not even necessarily like, dude, you got to be careful with those bigger schools. The bigger schools don't need people attention, right, for a fishing team. Okay, they have a football team that is bringing in plenty of attention. The smaller schools are seriously where the money's at when it comes to college fishing, and that's why you see like that Adrian College have a coach and push Campbellsville University. You have Bethel, Dallas Baptist, like these smaller schools that you're kind of seeing be more of a powerhouse, and that is legitimate what some of those schools are getting. And I know that just on a personal level with college anglers, and the vast majority of that is not that way. And Bailey, I think the majority of it is more of a scholarship on a minor extent to that. But like Bethel has wrap boats, DBU has wrap boats that are there. They have wrapped trucks that anglers, if you're the top 4 to 6 anglers, you can fish out of that boat. You don't have to have your own boat. You have everything. I mean, and that's just one of my personal, the kid that I fished with in college in high school. We went to the high school nationals together. He's the coach for Dallas Baptist University, and he fished there through college and that kind of a thing. And that's where some of that knowledge is coming in, and maybe things have changed. I just am going off of when I was in college talking to different anglers.
Yeah. So maybe it's, college could be a route for someone that wants to be in the industry long term, but also has to know, and maybe it takes a lot of self-reflection of and maybe some self-acknowledgement of I do have the talents to do it, so I'm going to go after this route, but it's not going to be easy. Is that kind of what you were getting at in terms of the college route? All right.
Yeah, and I think it's okay, and I don't regret anything about going to where I went to school or anything, but I think that if you are super serious about fishing professionally, if you are going to go the college route, I think it'd be wise to get in with a program that's really going to support you, because it's a good way, right? And then you have someone like Alex Redwine, who's like, dude, I don't want to have to deal with school. I'm not set up to go and try and get a scholarship at one of these schools. I'm going to go qualify and take the school of the opens and the school of and that is dude, that has been proven time and time again by people. So I don't think it's a necessary route. I'm just saying there is some validity to college fishing on making it professionally. Yeah. And again, I think your advantage goes up when you go to those schools that are really supporting anglers.
Yeah. Yep. And there's a good point from Logan saying, heard that both events will pull 200 plus boats. And if they do, the organization will never change the schedule to benefit the anglers. And I think that's along the mantra of kind of like the Elite Series is if there's a problem with the Elite Series, 10 guys will leave and 20 will take their place.
Yeah.
Those guys just want to be there. And part of me understands that from a business standpoint. I get it. I totally understand that. If the demand is there, why change? But I guess in the same point in time, just from a future standpoint, I guess just trying to do what the right thing will win you a lot more of a what do we call it? More of a brand light, if that makes any sense in terms of brand image, I guess is probably the better term to name it. Of really doing what's good for the people of your sport, because then you'll gain, I feel not just a better attraction, but more of a loyal attraction. Not that either doesn't have a loyal attraction or loyal fan base, but and this isn't really going after either or. I think it's just more of the two are obviously competitive. And I think in my mind, 2 leagues to compete just doesn't make sense. I think both leagues can easily live and survive in this industry if they coordinate schedules. Mm-hmm. And I really don't think it's that hard to coordinate schedules.
I don't think they ever will, though.
No, and it sucks to see that, to be honest with you. Just to lay it out there. I think it's pride. Yeah. I think it's what it is. One of them doesn't want to be the first one to back down. And I get that from a side, but part of me, I guess maybe just because I'm an outsider and I don't have, I'm not invested in either or in terms of I'm not a part of that organization. So maybe I'd have feelings if I worked at Bass or worked at MLF. But I think from an outsider's perspective, it sucks to see when pride comes into play and more of we're not going to budge because out of just, we shouldn't have to type of deal. Mm-hmm. Kind of an analogy I think I could come up with, and maybe it's a horrible analogy, so feel free to tell me if it is horrible. But take a kid whose parents got divorced and the parents compete to become the kid's favorite. I feel like that never, ever works out. And I feel like that's what this situation is, where 2 leagues are competing and the anglers are forced to choose, and that just never ends well. Obviously, there's people being successful in both leagues, but I feel like if there's anglers out there that want to compete in both and compete in both successfully and not have to make sacrifices, I feel like it isn't that hard to coordinate a schedule. You might have some scheduling.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's opportunities.
I feel like, you might have an elite series on the weekend during a college series. You might have some, I guess, coverage overlap, right? And they want to get the most out of their coverage. I get that from a business side. But I just don't get the whole butting heads competing in the leagues. But that's all I have, I think, on that. But anything else you guys got on that topic?
Dude, go ahead, Andy.
I'm trying to put together my words here, so you can go first, Deacon. I apologize.
Andy's putting
You're
on
good.
a thinking cap.
I'm just trying
There
to
we go.
think.
Caps on.
Yeah.
All right.
Should we just like rally it?
Bill
real
Bailey,
quick?
I think there you go. I see it. Oh
no,
dude, I think you're dead on as far as I think that guys or organizations could have a better commingling and kind of relationship. The part that contradicts to what you're saying is you said I'd rather there be, and maybe I misunderstood this. You said I'd rather see one league, and that makes it to where those, and that's how they both kind of feel too, right? In my opinion, like that we're seeing right now, that these leagues are going to compete tooth and nail because that they want there to be one league at some point. I do agree that the current state and that there is multiple leagues, it would be helpful that they work better together. And a good representation of that, maybe what we're seeing out west. I don't know if you guys saw the Bass Cat is titling this one-off kind of championship event, trying to make something similar to like a classic per se out west, right? So those guys don't have to travel. Well, it's combining all the different trails out west. And their viewpoint is this is going to make us all better by having the top 10 from each one of these, and I think the top 20 from the Apex. But like that's a cool thing. That's something we don't see in the industry of combining these different. And even Rick Pierce even said it on Bass Talk Live. He was like, we have support from Bass. Now, obviously, Bass isn't doing anything out west, but they have support from all these different organizations. And I think that if we're going to have multiple leagues, which is the way it kind of is right now with the NPFL and all these different things, it's cool to see those one-off events. And hopefully maybe that would promote some of that. But I don't know. You bring up some good points for sure on scheduling.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't think there should be one league. I think that both leagues have their place. I definitely don't think there should be one. I think there's competition is good if they're willing to come together on, especially from a scheduling standpoint. But I still think competing at to an extent is good because I think it pushes each league to be better for not only just the anglers, but in terms of maybe the media they're putting out, their live streams, what their shows, whatever it might be. Think on that level, pushing each other to be better is great, but scheduling on top of each other out of whatever reason, I don't think is just the way to do it. But I think there's a place in the industry easy for both, and I enjoy watching both platforms. I think both create different facets that are extremely interesting. But that championship you mentioned, though, that sounds extremely intriguing. That would be really cool to watch.
Dude, it's going to be 2023. Yeah, I'm like, it's exciting. It's making me want to like, I haven't figured out what I'm going to do next year, but I'm really considering fishing the Westerns just to have a crack at that. The Western Toyotas, because you finish in that, you have a chance at the top 10, and you also have a top, if you finish in the top 25 for the Toyota Series Championship, just cool championship events, you know?
So I'm assuming the other trail would be like the Wild West Bass Trail. Would probably be one of them that's included.
Yeah, so it's I believe it's the Wild West Bass Trail. It's the Apex, which that's kind of that new whole crazy event. So the Apex, they're qualifying 20 anglers out of that. And then there's 10 from the Toyota Series, and then it's another 10 from 2 other Western leagues. I don't think the ABA is involved as of now, but it's just kind of cool. It's combining all that. Their thought process is we're so diversified. It's the Juan Bass, so like the U.S. Open, that division or those guys they're doing 10 out of. So I think that's the right anyways. But what's cool is just they feel like they're so spread out, and there's some really good anglers, but everyone kind of fishes their own league, so you don't see the true competition of the West sometimes because and so I mean, I don't know, it's kind of cool to see that take place. And Rick Pierce was and his whole mindset behind it was like, look, there's only 7 or 8% of all of fishing tackle sales, all of boat sales out west, but there's a lot of people and there's a lot of lakes and there's tournament anglers. We need to make more of a push this way. And so I thought it was really, really cool. You guys should, if you have a chance, listen to that Bass Talk Live that talked about it. It was a couple of weeks ago, I think.
Heck yeah. Definitely have to check that out. Yeah.
So I'm going to circle back to the scheduling thing. So as somebody who's been like a tournament director and on tournament committee and dealing with local clubs around here and scheduling and working together, there's situations where you have to overlap and it's unfortunate. I mean, yeah, they probably could have worked around the scheduling conflict of the national championships or the championship series for these college events, but you also have to look at the grand scheme of both organizations' total schedule, and maybe it was the only place they could schedule it. So unfortunately, there are circumstances like that when it comes to scheduling tournaments to where you have issues like this arise. Could it be that it's a conflict deal and they're trying to create like a perfect competition scenario? We want these 200 plus boats here, and Bass wants the 200 boats here, and they don't want them to fish each other's events. But I mean, ultimately, it comes down to where did it make sense for those organizations to put those tournaments? And you don't know if it's a conflict thing or if not, or if it's just a scheduling issue. They just didn't have a place to put it, and it worked into their schedule that way. So, I mean, it is what it is, and anglers are going to fish where they want to fish. And if they want to do both, they'll fish both.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, at the end of the day, stuff does happen, especially when you have so many different trails and don't want to, overlap your own events. So
yeah. And permitting issues too, right? Like major organizations always get first pull on permits, but it could just have come down to that. There could be a major trail in that section of the country in the lake they wanted to fish that was the only weekend that was open. So there's a lot that goes into it, and sponsorship and money coming in from the township for that tournament to come into as well. So there's a lot of outside forces we don't see.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Boys, anything else we should let the folks know beyond the Hobie Eyewear sale going on for the next 2 weeks? Anything you guys got left?
Just a few Bass guide trips. Hopefully, I'm going to try to get my boat out tomorrow or Wednesday finally after getting it back from the shop, and then I'm pretty much just steelhead fishing. So
nice.
Yeah, got a lot of steelhead guide trips. It's been fun. Had Joe was it La Barbara out today, so it was fun. Second day with the float rod ever. It was fun watching him fight a fish.
That's awesome. Yeah, guys, for folks that are still tuning in, or if you're listening on MP3, from now, today until November 14th, you can get 35% off of your order over at Hobie Eyewear using code Sirius35. We'll put that in again, and we'll put it in the show description, and also you guys can access it. We'll put it up on social media. But saving 35% off of your order. So great time to get stuff for family, friends for Christmas. Great stocking stuffers. And then also we got some pretty cool Christmas giveaway stuff from Hobie Eyewear coming up in the next month. But make sure you guys take advantage of that 35% off because they're already an affordable price for how high performance they are. So you got to take advantage of the 35%.
Yeah,
absolutely.
35% is huge.
They're really good for the price point that they're at. I'd put them up there with my $300 Oakleys I've owned. So they're absolutely incredible for the price point.
If you're a shallow guy, a guy that likes to sight fish too, make sure you guys are getting some Sightmaster lenses because those are insane.
Oh, and I mean, shameless plug on my guide service.
I'll be using them at Havasu, man.
It's awesome. They're the only ones I wear when I'm on the trout stream because I can pick fish out normally that I couldn't see with other lenses. So they are good.
Heck yeah. Deacon, you got anything left for the folks before we tune out?
No, man. I'm headed to Havasu next week for an ABA championship. That'll be cool. I saw that Ish Monroe and Roy Hawk fished the last one there. Ish just won a boat fishing one of those ABAs up at Clear Lake. So I'm curious to see if those guys will be there. It's cool. Just there's always some Western hammers like on these one-off kind of championship events. That's how those guys out west have always done it. So hopefully do well there. And man, yeah, after that, then headed to Eufaula. So a busy end of the year when I'm normally done fishing right about now. So I'm curious to see how this late fall stuff will pan out.
Good luck, man.
Heck yeah, dude. Good luck. Obviously, we'll be rooting for you.
Thanks.
And yeah, I'm looking forward to see some of the travels and hopefully some dubs coming from Deacon. Dubs by Deacon.
That'd be wicked, man. Dubs by Deacon. Man, dude, if I win one and I have it on video, absolutely, that'll be the title. That'll be the title for the YouTube.
All right, folks.
Dubs
We
with
appreciate you
Deacon.
guys tuning in. We'll see you guys on Wednesday.